Everybody, how about a nice welcoming round of applause to our guest, John Richie. Yay! John is the chair of the Wichita County Democratic Party.
That's correct.
John here is from about as close to a political dynasty family as you're going to get here in North Texas. Tell us about your family's history in the Democratic Party.
My grandfather helped Graham Purcell get elected congressman in the early 60s, got him put on the bench as a judge, or certainly helped that. Was precinct chair. I mean, he was a worker bee in the party. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather's been dead now 30 some odd years. Was a federal judge or a federal magistrate here, appointed by Johnson. My mother is a past president of the Texas Democratic Women and now sits on the state Democratic Executive Board. My uncle Boyd Richie is the chairman of the Texas Democratic Party, and his wife is former president of the Texas Democratic Women.
So what would your grandparents say about politics in Texas today?
My grandfather would probably look at all of this and say, I didn't fight for my country for it to turn into this.
Well, what's your day job?
I work for AT&T, and I'm a CWA vice president.
Okay, so you're on the labor side.
Yes, sir.
For AT&T. Now, obviously AT&T is a global corporation, but operating in Texas, what's your take on labor in Texas? What's the state of the union there?
I can speak for my union.
Yeah, please don't get fired over this today.
No, they're going to have to have a little bit more than that to do that.
Because he has employment rights.
That's right.
Some of you never heard of this.
Most people didn't realize what a labor union brings to somebody within the state of Texas. You know, in the state of Texas, they don't have to give you a reason to terminate your employment. They never have. They can just say goodbye. When you have a labor agreement, the first thing that's negotiated is what's called just cause. They have to prove why they need to terminate you. A lot of folks in this state believe that labor unions are greedy and they want companies to, dissolve as long as I get paid and so on.
Yeah. That's
very, very, very far from the truth. The sad part about the labor, I don't care if it's in the United States or in the state of Texas, is that labor organizations are just trying to fight to keep what they've got in their contract. Overall, you really just held the line. And
overall, the de-unionization across the country, it certainly has flattened wages.
I would go as far as saying it's driven downward.
Yeah, of course, the argument is the wage increases that would be associated with labor, the presence of organized labor, are somehow unfair to the consumer, unfair to the employers. But those are wages that people then go spend, and they drive up the economy. There's just two different ways people look at the math. One, they think that the presence of organized labor creates a false wage economy, but the analysis always seems to end there with sort of this theoretical abstract, whereas the actual numbers say you put money into a guy's check, he's not going to scroll away in the Cayman Islands. He's going to go spend it.
Well, and that's a good point you bring up, because about 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, there was a study done. They wanted to know if companies were more profitable if they had union folk in their house or not. Mm-hmm. They did all of the Fortune 500 companies. All the Fortune 5 companies that were had union in their house were 300% more profitable than companies that weren't, because you had a better product by more skilled work staff that wanted 8 hours of work for 8 hours of pay, which is the only thing that we asked for, and it produced a better product than what you're getting from overseas.
Getting back to Texas politics.
Yes.
You're trying to get Democrats elected. That's what you're trying to do.
That's my job.
That's your job.
That's what I'm elected to do.
How depressing is that?
We're tired of getting our ass whipped.
Yeah.
And the sad part about it, we're getting our butts whipped because people are not informed. I'll tell you that news today, and you probably know this having been in journalism, is a lot different than what our parents grew up with. Mm-hmm. We used to have what was called the fairness doctrine. Mm-hmm. If you had Mr. Harris here, then I would be here, and you would have diverging points of view. That isn't the way it is anymore. There's more nefariousness, as far as I'm concerned, from the more conservative side of the house, because
in media,
because they're telling you things that we look at and go, but that just doesn't add up.
Getting back to Wichita County, it was just what, 15, 20 years ago where the parties flipped.
Yeah, it probably wasn't even that long.
These are the same people. It's the party identification that's changing. It isn't like suddenly Texans are wholly different. Except, to me, what has changed in Texas is the Texas voters for so long were Democrats for a couple of reasons. One was post-Reconstruction anti-Republican sentiment. There was also an independent populist aspect to the Texas Democrat. But to me, what has driven more than anything else is the rise in population proportion and in political power of the Hispanic population. To me, that has been the wedge that has driven certain white people toward being Republican. I think the issue of race in Texas is the primary driving force behind so many people changing from Democrat to Republican.
You're probably right, and I hate to be just that blunt about it, but I will tell you, I think two things have occurred. One, even Texas Democrats, for the most part, have always been more middle to conservative, okay? So it wasn't a far leap for them when the moral majority and those folks came in and started talking about all these hot button issues, which actually has nothing to do, in my opinion, with trying to feed your family, educate your child, keep the roof over your head, so keep the lights on. And I think that was number one. I think that occurred. And then the second part of that is that when that started to occur, you had folks who said they were good Democrats. And I will tell you, my definition of a good Democrat is one who dies that way. Okay?
Hopefully of natural causes.
What? Preferably.
I don't want Shannon's militia asked to say, "Oh, good. I hope him die that way today."
Yeah, well, no kidding. But so people started switching parties because they saw their base leaving them. And that happened in this county.
But the voters switched first, and the Republicans chased the party affiliation.
It's like chasing a bet.
Yeah. To me, the real battleground was in school, in education. That's where everyone here who has kids, raise your hands if you have kids, where over the course of 25, 30 years, you watched your kids' classes turn from white to brown. And we've seen it played out here in Wichita Falls. Schools that were historically country club schools began to have to share classroom space with brown kids and black kids. And people looked around, and that bothered them. And
those are the people who would tell you that they didn't leave the Democratic Party.
And that it left them.
They left them.
And there was this opportunistic play that was out there to be had saying that this influx of illegals is diminishing the value of your white child's education. And that's what I believe. That, to me, you talk about the bread and butter issue that any family sitting around, if they're vulnerable to one, the one that they go, yes, I share that feeling, is my kid's education is suffering because these brown people, and I sound like a radical, that's not me talking. I'm just saying it's what I believe. But I'm saying what I've heard and been told hundreds of times.
The reason that Hispanic kids and white kids and African American kids are in the same classroom in the public schools because it's constituted by law. That Hispanic kid wants to learn. That African American child wants to learn. That Asian child wants to learn. They all want to learn. Yeah. My child goes to Crockett Elementary. Both of them do. And one's in the kindergarten and one's in the 4th grade. And I will tell you that they cohabitate with these children just fine. It's the parents that are the problem. Yep. And the sad part about it is most of those parents keep voting for people who are defunding public education. So as soon as that door was open, this opportunism kicked in to bootstrap this reality of a changing demographic, and to make it illegitimate, to say, okay, well, it's illegals doing it, or to question just the valuable public policy of educating kids regardless of their immigration status. And I really think that is what pushed that middle 30% from D to R. I think that's probably a fair statement. Now, looking ahead, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm not just here to talk.
When we talked to Bruce a couple weeks ago, we talked about how New Mexico had gone from purple to blue. Arizona is going from red to purple. It is now the pushback. Yeah, these are states that purely driven by a function of wedge politics, immigration wedge politics. Yeah, they got their way. Arizona lost its fucking mind, and now they're about to lose control of the state. Maybe not this cycle.
Oh, it's coming.
But it's going to happen. What's your prediction for Texas?
Well, and I honestly don't want to give Ms. Hickman's ex-husband opportunity to want to come do something nefarious to some people, but I will tell you, in the state of Texas, and this is all on the record, this is all, you can go to the comptroller's office, it's, by the way, controlled by a Republican.
Aren't they all?
You can go in and you can see that the population shift is going to go to the Hispanic community. They're going to start spending a lot of money in this state. That's real money, folks, and that money's going to go into the state coffers.
What does success look like to you, I'll say in 2012, and then 2014, and then 2016, here at the county level? What does success look like? What's your plan?
In 2012, I think we need to return a Democrat in a precinct 3 commissioner's race. That's the only race that's being opposed at this point. So we're going to hold the other races, such as Janice Sons' JPC. Well, the tax assessor has a race, and hopefully we return Lou Murdoch back to the tax assessor's office, because I have a real problem with Harry Passion getting his hands on my plates and my titles, and that's what they want to do.
Now, who's running against you? I don't even know.
Well, you have Tommy Smythe and Clay Glasgow who are going to run against each other in the Republican primary.
When do you feel like there'll be any kind of state level office coming out of here, like District 69?
I would love to have had somebody run this time, but what we have to do, and part of that success you asked about, is we have to have people get their backbone back and say, yes, I'm a Democrat, and I'm not going to hide that from my friends.
I mean, how can
that type of backbone will lead to something.
Now, I can run my son against Craig Estes. I'd let him debate him.
I can run my dog against Craig Estes, and number one, he'd outrun him, and number two, he'd probably win. Now, Craig has a problem in his primary because he has a Tea Party candidate from Collin County who's a CPA that's running against him.
Is Craig aware of the Tea Party? Does he read the paper?
I didn't know he could read. I'm sure he can, but I don't.
And guys, we're not dogpiling just starting here on Craig Estes.
No, Craig Estes, and for years, a lot of people kind of led this little secret thing around. I wouldn't want to elect the nephew of Billy Saul Estes.
Oh, heavens. Well,
and he may take me to court and sue me for that.
Well, didn't he win the furniture award or something? The Texas Monthly?
Texas Monthly has now marked him antique furniture. And now, the last person who got antique furniture in this neck of the woods was unfortunately Charles Fennell, because he was there 27 years. So hopefully they start doing some house cleaning before then. But Craig, Senator Estes is not worthy of the job he has. He never has been. He fell into that job because
he's a character in a novel I'm writing.
Oh, good. Well, I can give you all you want. Tom Haywood died, and so Mrs. Haywood said, well, Craig, you were so nice to my husband, why don't you run? But we have to do better, and we didn't want anybody, and people didn't want to stick their heads.
To me, that's the key is someone's got to run, and they're going to get beat up, but they have to run. They got to run a principal race, and they have to become a magnet for support over a longer term than just an election cycle.
We've got to push aside all the hot buttons, social issues about gay marriage or abortion or whatever, and say you got to be able to eat, you got to have a roof over your head, you got to have education, you got to have those things. And if you don't, then I have failed as party chair, and I'm seeking a little bit higher office within the party structure, and that's not going to serve the people of this county or the 30 Central District or anywhere else.
Well, everybody, I think we're going to wrap things up. A round of applause for my guest, John Richie. I managed to barely behave. I barely scratched the surface of my...
I tried to help you along.
I was... so anyway, we're going to take a little break, and we're going to get Casey Long back here to take us out for the night.